I don't know how Christy found me, but she found me on LinkedIn and reached out to me and said, hey, would you be willing to come do a guest lecture? And I said, sure, yeah, I'm happy to. I got to do this once before at BYU Hawaii, guest lectured in their entrepreneurship program, which was really fun because I got to go to Hawaii to do that, which was great. BYU didn't pay for my trip, but it was fun. So this is our logo, and basically started this company, like Christy said, 20 years ago in March. And at the time I was about, I don't know, some of you, are still pretty young, but at the time I was about 35 years old. And that just lets you know that I had already started my career. And I had decided, I went to school at the University of Utah. I decided that I wanted to go into sales. This is probably not the forum to let you know that I didn't finish college because I went into sales and basically thought that was going to be it for the rest of my life. Thought I was just going to be telecom or IT sales guy, and I did really well in IT sales. This is a picture of my family. These are not employees. But I wanted to show this because it gives you an idea when you decide to be an entrepreneur, you need buy-in from your family, your spouse, in this case, my kids and their spouses. It becomes a family thing when you're an entrepreneur, and you really need these people to support you. So you can see they all have sumo hats on. My youngest daughter is 20 years old. And so she was born the year I started my business. And she's never seen me in another hat other than a sumo hat. So it's part of who I am. And when you're an entrepreneur, your business becomes part of who you are. It's part of your identity. So this last year, this is my wife, Missy. And we've been married 33 years this year. So again, she's supported me through this whole journey. And I can't do something like this without her. That's me in Japan, me and Missy in Japan a couple of years ago with a sumo hat on. I've worn it all over the world. So anyway, I'm going to probably share some background behind what sumo is, a little bit about myself, and give you an idea of what we do, which I think is helpful for you to see that there's businesses out there that aren't just restaurants and franchises and things like that. Entrepreneurs have an option of doing a lot of different things. And when I started my business, there wasn't very many people doing what I was doing, but there were some, which is what gave me the idea. I always had a little bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. I had friends in high school that had part-time jobs at McDonald's and other things, and I couldn't stand having a boss, even at a young age. I had a really hard time thinking, I'm going to go work somewhere, they're going to give me a check, they're going to make me work Fridays and Saturdays. It just wasn't, I didn't like it. So in high school, I talked my dad into buying me some window washing gear, like squeegees and scrub brushes and buckets and ladders. And I went door to door within a couple miles of where I lived. And I made more money every afternoon that I washed windows, just knocking on doors and saying, hey, we're out in the neighborhood washing windows, wondering if you'd be interested. And I would walk around the house and give them a quote. $1 for a small window, $2 for a medium-sized window, and $3 for a big window. And that's how I paid for my school dances. That's how I paid for a lot of things, was just hustle, just figuring out something that I could do that wasn't working at the mall or working in fast food, which are pretty much the jobs that are available to teenagers. So anyway, it was in my blood early on. And then I went to the University of Utah. I went to Japan on a mission, went to the University of Utah, saw a job opening at MCI, which is now Verizon. And my dad called me and said, hey, MCI is hiring, you should go apply for that job. And I went and applied, and I was in school full time at the time. And they said, well, this is a full-time job. It's 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. And I said, okay, well, I'll quit school and see how this goes. And never looked back. And that was my career. So I did that for about 10 to 12 years. And then that was 2002. And the dot-com bubble burst. And a lot of people were out of work in 2001, 2002. And I was on a team at Quest Communications, which is now Lumen, which was CenturyLink, which was US West. I was on a team there that was an overlay team, and they didn't need the overlay teams anymore. They were trying to right-size the organization and save some money. So they came to me and asked me if I would take what I perceived to be a demotion, a step down. And I felt like, well, I paid my dues. I don't want to step down. What are my other options? And they said, well, we have a package. If you'd like, we'll just let you go and give you a 6-month severance. And that's what I did. I took the 6-month severance and I started Sumo. And I've never looked back. Would I have dared? Would I have had the courage to do that without the adversity that stepped into my life? I don't know. I shiver to think about what my life would be today had I not had something unexpected happen. So I want you to remember that sometimes the opportunities that come to you in your life are right behind or hiding behind the door hardship. And you have to step through it to really see clearly what is meaningful to you. I'll get to a little exercise to help you guys maybe kind of figure out what is meaningful. So what is Sumo? Well, I was selling telecommunication services. That was my career. And you'll find, what you'll see with most businesses that you may not know is most successful businesses, not most businesses, but most successful businesses are started by people who were working in the industry in which they start their business. They have a background, they have experience, they have an understanding of customers and what customers expect. And so most successful businesses have a period of time of those business owners having worked in that industry and gaining an understanding, maybe seeing some things that are missing. For me, I just saw a different way to get paid. I was being paid a salary and commission, and I knew that if I stepped outside and became what we call a broker, that I could sell the same products and services and just get paid commissions differently. And so I started doing that. And I reached out to all the providers, not just CenturyLink or Lumen or AT&T or Verizon, but every provider you can think of was willing to pay me to sell their products and services. And they were willing to pay me a residual commission, meaning not one time, but as long as the customer was paying their bill, I could get a percentage of their bill paid to me. And I loved that idea. And so that's what started Sumo. And because it's a residual commission, if I sold something last year, 10 things last year, 10 deals, 10 circuits, 10 data center opportunities, I would still be getting paid next year, and I could sell 10 more. And I call it a 7-layer fun dip. It just builds on itself. And a lot of businesses are that way because customers tend to buy from the same people that they've bought from before. So we don't have any of our own products, none. We only represent other people's products. We're a consulting company because everyone that I hire and because I had worked in the industry, our customers view us as experts and give us an opportunity to meet with them and quote services to them and sell them. So we don't charge for the consulting. We get paid on the sell when we sell them. And what do we sell? We sell network, data centers. I'm going to show you some pictures of some data centers. Has anyone been in a data center before? You've seen like movies where Mission Impossible, they're in a data center trying to steal information, right? Or anyway, I'll show you some pictures and you'll understand what these are. Software. If you call backcountry.com and you've called them before, they have a record, usually, if you've bought something from them. Let's say you bought a bike or a part for your bike or some skis or a jacket. When you call them, there's software that will recognize your phone number and pull you up so that the agent knows who you are. We sell that software. So that's one of the interesting things. Or you may go to backcountry.com and type in, hey, I want to chat with an agent. I don't want to call anymore. I would rather just chat. We sell that software that makes the chat work on a website. It's not our software. It's someone else's software, and we sell it to the company and help them implement it and support it. So I talked about data centers and asked if any of you have been in a data center. How many of you know where the cloud is? Where is the cloud? If you ask my wife, it's in the satellites. That's what she thought, at least. It's not in the satellites, right? It's in a data center. And these data centers are all over the world. And I became fascinated with this concept of where is the cloud? And everybody that is building these clouds, Amazon, Google, they all have data centers that look like this on the inside. They're just white space before they put servers in them. Right? They go in racks, and they have these big racks full of gear. They have hardware that does compute, storage, and networking. And they put all that in a data center, and they need cooling to cool that equipment down. They can't put it in this room, or this room would overheat. It'd be 140 degrees before you know it. And all the equipment would shut down if it got too hot. So they put it in rooms like this, and under my feet there is about what they call a 3-foot plenum that they push cold air into. And then everywhere they put a rack, it's ventilated in front of it, and the air naturally flows up straight up the rack and is pulled by the fans in all of the machines through the rack. And then they have heat extraction that goes up through the roof. Heat rises, and so they'll have a plenum, or they'll have vents in the roof that pulls the heat out. And so the room stays around 70 to 80 degrees in the room. If you walk by a rack that has a lot of equipment in it, it's really hot. So I had customers that came to me and said, we need a data center or one of these rooms in Australia. Can you help us find one? Yes, absolutely. Melbourne, Sydney, all of these dots are places that I've been to help customers look for data center space. So much like if you've ever watched House Hunters International, you ever watched that show? Where somebody shows up in Prague and says, we're thinking about moving to Prague, can you help us find a house? And they say, sure. What are you looking for? Oh, I want a 3-bedroom, and we want it to be close to restaurants and close to shopping. Okay, and you get a list of what the customer requires. It's very similar to what I did for my clients. Okay, you need to be in Australia. How much space do you need? And some of my customers were very large. Like you've heard of Dell Computers, VMware, EMC. They need this kind of data center space for storage all over the world. They're providing services to people all over the world. And so they would need a room maybe this size for all of their servers, or twice this size. And I would go help them find it. So I went to Japan, China, about 8 different cities in China, Singapore, South Korea, all over Europe, London, Paris, Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Dublin, a lot of different places in Europe where I would help customers look for this kind of data center space. And then I would get a brokerage fee, much like a real estate broker would get a fee for helping them acquire the space. So Sumo is kind of built on sourcing these kind of things for our clients. It might be software, or it might be a place to put their servers. And you can see all over the US, been everywhere in the US, Atlanta, North Virginia, Washington, DC, Toronto, Chicago, Arizona, Texas, everywhere. I've had customers ask me to source some of their data center services. So I'm going to show you a few pictures. This is me in front of GTS data center in China. This is me on top of a data center in Japan. Made me wear a hard hat because it was under construction. This is us on top of a data center in just outside of Sydney, Australia. One of my clients. This is me inside of, this isn't a data center, this is a power plant in Iceland, which was right next to a data center. And as you can imagine, data centers need a lot of power to run. A lot more, I mean, some data centers consume as much power as a small city. And so in Iceland, they've developed geothermal power. They drill down several hundred feet and tap steam. The whole island is geothermal. And so they tap that steam, which is high pressure steam, which turns a turbine backwards that you would see in a normal generator turning forwards. With, you know, if you pour gas in the engine and start it, the generator turns forward. Well, the turbine spins it backwards and it actually generates power from the pressure produced by the steam. And I got a tour of this power plant in Iceland. This is a Samsung data center in South Korea. So if you have a Samsung phone or use any Samsung devices, a lot of them have brains that live somewhere and possibly could be in this data center in South Korea. Amazing facility. So that's a little bit about Sumo and what we do. And I think for this class, it's not that important that you remember what my company does or what I've done for a living. But how I went about it, I think is more important. And I want to leave a little bit of room at the end. When are we finished?
20 more minutes.
20?
Yeah, so at 1:40.
1:40?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to leave about 10 minutes for a Q&A and make sure we have time for that. But I want to share with you a little bit about the journey of an entrepreneur, because as I've been through this process, I find that there's many others that are very much like me, that do it very much the same way. And I use this term bootstrap. Does anybody know what that means? Bootstrapped? Anybody, do you know what that means? What does it mean? Yeah, and when you say help, what that means is money, right? A lot of businesses are started with venture capital, angel investing, loans from a bank, right? SBA loans, loans from family, loans from friends. A lot of people think that all I need to do, because we all watch Shark Tank all the time, and we think, oh, all I need is like some really sharp investor to believe in my idea. And then with their money, I'll be able to start my business. Well, Sumo didn't start that way. I didn't have any money. I didn't have an investor. I didn't even have a loan. Nothing. Just started from scratch. And for 20 years, never had a loan, never had an investor, never had a line of credit. So when I say bootstrap, that means it was built on its own money, on the money that the business generated. And I would advise you, if you're ever thinking about a business idea or something you're going to start, don't just come up with the idea, because you could have a brilliant idea for a new backpack. I always had this idea, because I camped a lot when I was growing up, of a tent in a can. And you know those cans you open where something springs out of them? I thought, wouldn't that be cool if you went camping and you just kind of open this coffee can and your tent like flew out in the air and just like set itself up and floated to the ground? Because tents are a pain in the butt to set up. Well, that's a good idea, but how do I make money doing that? And so that's that's, one takeaway I want you to have today is if you're coming up with a business idea, before you even share it with a friend, figure out how you could make money doing it. Because if it doesn't make money, it doesn't matter if it's a good idea. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Everybody has good ideas. But if you can't figure out A to Z how you could make money doing it, then it's not even worth spending your energy trying. It is worth spending your energy to figure out how to make money. So anyway, bootstrapped. I sold everything I owned. My wife and I were in our little starter home. We had 4 kids. We shared one bathroom. 6 of us had one bathroom. Luckily, it kind of had a little double vanity, so we could spread out a little bit. But for 12 years, we were in our little starter home sharing one bathroom with 4 kids. And we sold everything. I had a camper. I had a big, nice new Ram half-ton truck. I had motorcycles. I had guns. In the first 2 years of my business, we sold it all. The only thing we had left was our house. We sold everything because we needed money to live on. And I believed enough in my business that I was willing to take a step back. I had been 10, 12 years, had a really good career, was making really good money. All of my friends were in brand new homes and were doing really, really well. And we sold everything and we lived poor for the first 5 years of my business. That's being bootstrapped. And that's when you really believe that you can accomplish something, you're willing to make sacrifices to do it. So in the last 5 years, we got a lot of recognition. That's my business in the last 5 years. For the first 15 years, we didn't get very much recognition, just quietly grew the business. For the first 10 years, I was a one-man show or had 1 employee. Now there's 10 employees, but big enough to hit the Inc. 5000, meaning we did enough revenue year over year, and you have to submit an application to Inc. to be on the Inc. 5000, but we did enough to be ranked in the top 5,000 fastest growing companies in America. That took me 17 years to get my business to a point where it was growing enough to be able to do that. So that's something I'm proud of. So in the next 5 minutes, I want a little exercise with you. And there's this word in Japanese, let me go back, called ikigai. Went back too far. Iki means to live. And I speak Japanese a little bit. I don't read it very well, but iki is to live and gai is purpose. And the Japanese people have a philosophy that, and they actually live longer. Have you heard of these things called blue zones where people live to be over 100? There are spots around the world. One of the reasons that they claim they live so long is that they always have ikigai. They have a purpose in life. And so I wanted to go through this exercise with you today and have you do some self-introspection and evaluation and ask yourself, what is my ikigai? What am I dying to do tonight? What am I dying to do this weekend? What am I dying to do next week? Or if I could have my wish, where would I be in 5 years? What like moves you to action? There are things that you could say, well, this weekend, I'm getting together with friends, whatever, we're going to play video games, or, in a couple of weeks, we're going to watch the Super Bowl. That's great. And those are things to look forward to. But what inspires you to be here at school? Why? It's because you want to be better. You're working on something that's out there that's motivating you and inspiring you. So ikigai to me is what moves, motivates, and inspires you. Not what excites you or makes you happy for a moment, but it moves you, motivates you, and inspires you to act. It makes you want to do something. Go to school, get a degree, get a higher degree, do something. It's really easy to point out what it isn't. You have people that can tell you all the time what they don't want to be when they grow up, the kind of person they don't want to hang out with. But ask them, what do you want to be? Who do you want to hang out with? What kind of people do you like? What do you prefer? we're all critics. We're all used to Simon Cowell kind of criticizing and telling people what he didn't like about their scene. And even if they're really, really good, he just says that they were indulgent and seem to be really proud of themselves. Well, you know what? They're good. They have a right to be. Anyway, so here's the exercise. Sometimes it's hard to figure out what inspires you, what motivates me. Sometimes that's a hard thing to do. But if you focus on people, who inspires you? Is there someone you want to be like? And then what is it about them that inspires you? Dissect that. We can all come up with a list of people, and I would ask you to list 3 of each. What inspires you and who inspires you? And this is easier sometimes if you start with who. Who inspires you and what about them inspires you? Some of you may already know what inspires you or what you want to be or what you want to do. And if you do, that's great. I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I'm where I'm at today. I grew a business for 20 years. I had some investors show up last year that took an interest in my business. When my investor first came to my office and sat down with me, we had shared some numbers back and forth. He came and sat on a couch with me in my office, and I turned and looked at him and I said, "Are you serious? You want to buy this?" And he said, "I'm dead serious." And he put together an offer. I didn't like it. It had some things in it that I didn't like. So I turned him down, which was a really hard thing for me because to me, it was a lot of money. A year later, he came back. And not just him, but many others. I built a successful business that was starting to attract some attention. Came back, he said, "Hey, what about now?" And I said, "Well, no, not if the deal's the same. I'm not interested." It didn't inspire me. And he said, "We're ready to put something together that works for you, not for us." And I put a deal together, and I sold my business this last year. So that's why I have time, Christy, to come and do this. I took a lesser role. I'm still the president of Sumo Communications, but we hired a new CEO. And he went to school at BYU. He graduated top of his class. He got his MBA at MIT. And he has a background in M&A, mergers and acquisitions. And I had grown my business to a point where I wanted to scale the business and make it bigger. But with my education, college dropout, my background, I didn't have the wherewithal to do it. I didn't know how. But I thought I had grown something that they thought was special, and they could bring in the talent to help me take it to the next level. And within 9 months, we bought a company that was 4 times our size, and we're looking at others. So it's an exciting time for me to be in a place to do that. So I'm going to wrap up there. I think I'm wrapped up. This is a little quote from me. I don't think I'm Henry Thoreau or anything, but begin today to become who you want to become, and the what will become more clear. If there's anything for you to work on in your life, work on it. Be better at who you are, and the what you want to do or accomplish in your life will become more clear. So that's it, and open up for Q&A.
Yeah, we have plenty of time for Q&A.
Yeah.
You guys want to know?
Raise our hand.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm kind of curious about a lot of things. Starting kind of when you start the business, how did you reach out to like customers, get them to, or did customers come to you?
No.
How did you get them to want your
Yeah,
products?
no, that's a great question. I basically took, I live in Utah. I took a map of the Salt Lake Valley and tried to identify the top 20 businesses that were in the Salt Lake Valley that were buying the services that I had the ability to sell. And I call it elephant hunting. I went after those top 20 accounts in the first year. I had been working in the industry, so some of them had already bought from me, were customers of mine. I just showed up in a different way for them. So I went down and met with Ancestry. There was a company called Mosey that was in Pleasant Grove, since acquired by EMC. Anybody that was buying the services that I was selling that seemed like they were probably buying a lot of it, I made a list and I called them. And my kids will tell you, I took people to lunch for a living. That's what salespeople do. And then I asked them who else they knew. And 90% of Sumo's business today comes from customer referrals. Most of them, and when I say referrals, I guess one asterisk for that is, what was your name?
I'm Carter.
Carter. If I were working with you at company A, and I worked with you for 2 years, and you got a new job, the average life cycle of a job in many markets today is 2 to 4 years. So you're going to work there 2 to 4 years, you're going to go work somewhere else. We'd get to know each other. And the minute you got a job somewhere else, I would follow you there. And even if you weren't the person that was buying the services I was selling, now you're in a new environment. And we call that Johnny Appleseed. You sell one customer, they go somewhere else. And if you don't Johnny Appleseed that customer and follow them, then you're just making a mound of work for yourself. It's so hard to get even one customer. I have customers now that have done business with me for 17, 18 years at different. So that's a great question. Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming to class.
Yeah.
My name's Ro. I've got a couple questions, but of course I'll give everybody an opportunity. I love that you brought up an acquisition because it's been haunting my mind. My company right now that I work for is going through an acquisition.
Yeah.
We're seeing the fluctuation of so many different factors come into play. What are some of the toughest parts of an acquisition that you've seen, and how have you overcome some of those?
Well, employee impact is probably the biggest, right? Because my employees weren't owners. I own my business 100%. So what benefit was it to them to go through an acquisition? And so learning to express that, what benefit it is. I met with our buyer and we made sure we kept all of our employees. Some of them got raises. And I remained involved. So there are other businesses where the founders leave and they're left with this new entity that may not know a lot about their business. So it's a tricky thing, but you have to understand that no matter where you work, if you're employed or if you're an entrepreneur, at some point during that, there will be a transaction. Businesses get acquired. When I started my business, I started it as a lifestyle job. I never thought that I would sell my business. It wasn't part of my plan. But as my business matured and it got older, I did start making preparations to be acquired. And so I think it's good for, employees to know, and if you're going to be an employer, to know and make it clear that, hey, our plan is to grow. Being stagnant is not an end game for anybody. And mergers and acquisitions facilitate growth. They're problematic at first, but you just have to trust the process and stay the course. So I don't know if that answers it clearly.
It definitely helps.
Yeah.
How did you know, at what point did you know that you were ready to hire more?
Oh, when I got tired. Yeah.
Clients or?
Well, and this is a very good question because I was good at sales. That was the one thing I was good at. So I could close a deal and generate some income, but I didn't have a background in accounting or bookkeeping. I didn't have a background in, taxes. I didn't have a background in human resources. All of those things, you begin to realize as a business owner that, do what you're good at and then hire people to do those other things. And for me, sales runs a business. All the other things support sales, in my opinion. If you're generating revenue, that's the most important thing. And so it freed me up to just go, do what I do well when I started to hire people to support my customers. I had customers calling me on Thanksgiving Day, needing me to help them with a service that they had bought from somebody that we had brokered that was broken or needed to be fixed. And it was ruining my life. I didn't want to do that on Thanksgiving. I'd rather hire someone that they knew that that was part of their job, that if we got a call, that they'd have to step away from the dinner table and help solve. So it was just when my business really started to cramp my style, is when I started to hire people.
Another question that I have for you is, since you've been around other entrepreneurs, being an entrepreneur yourself and seeing all the success that you have, what common challenges do you see entrepreneurs going through? And what are some red flags that would like tell you to go ahead and tell them, you know, when does somebody step away from the table? And, you know, what are some of the red flags we should look
When is the time to
at?
maybe pull the plug?
Or maybe just go in a different direction.
Yeah, or get a job. And that's a great question, because I started Sumo and about 2 years in, I wasn't generating enough money to cover my nut, to cover the bills. And I had a guy fly into town. He was with one of the companies that I represented, and we went on an appointment together, and he said, "Hey, why don't you come work for me?" And this happens a lot too with entrepreneurs, where maybe they're doing okay, they're generating some money, but not great money. And really quick story, because this is interesting. The guy's name was John Marsh. He had his own little private plane, flew into town. We're on our way to see a customer. He said, "Hey, come work for me. I'll pay you this." And I took it because I needed the money. So for a year and a half, and I said to him, "Can I keep Sumo on the side? Can I just like moonlight?" Moonlighting is doing a business on the side, right? "Can I just moonlight and do it on the side?" And he said, "Yeah, no problem, but just come work for me and focus on this." So I did, and he got cancer and became terminal. And I flew out to Santa Barbara, and I went into his office and I met with him, and I said, "John, you're not fun to work for anymore, no offense." He became really grumpy. I would too, if I were terminally ill. So I didn't blame him, but I said, "You know, you kind of yanked me out of my business, and I just want to go back and do that." And he said, "What do you need from me?" And I said, "I need a little help. I need you to pay me," because I had brought him a certain book of business. I said, "Would you pay me an override? You know, a little bit of like cash flow on the side for that book of business I helped to bring you while I was here?" And he called his CFO, his bookkeeper, and Ron came in and he said, "Hey, Ron, write this up for Bret." And so John Marsh ended up dying about 6 months later. And I got, for 7 years, I got a commission check from that company. And John understood that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. So sometimes when you need the help, and it wasn't alone, he just said, "Yes, I'm willing to do it." So an interesting story, because I think it happens to a lot. You get so far in and you think, I could make more money if I just took the job. But to me, it was sucking my ikigai. My real purpose was I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And so that cut me back free to go do this. I'm glad that it did. But sometimes it is a dead end. And sometimes you do need to pull the plug. And I would say, again, think about the money, right? It's not about the business or how good, you know, the whatever it is you're doing, if it's food service or if it's clothing or digital marketing or whatever it is. If it's not going to produce enough money for you and your family to live on, at some point, if you can't track that in your mind and see it, then pull the plug, start something else. What else?
Do you ever kind of have any issues? I guess to rephrase the question, how was your experience when you travel to all these different countries and work with all these different people and cultures? Kind of like, how was your experience with them? Find any overly differences?
Yes.
Like big differences?
Yes.
Did you do anything that would like
Yes.
angry?
Very much so. You know, in Europe and in Asia Pacific, Japan, Korea, especially in Japan, Australians sort of seem to get it, what we did and how we do it. Europeans seem to understand this idea of a consultant or a broker, but in Asia, they didn't understand. In Japan, they didn't understand. Singapore, maybe there's enough of an influence and it's like a multicultural country. But Korea, they didn't understand. So I did run into that. And I was kind of a trailblazer, I think, in Europe. I was in Ireland specifically. I negotiated a deal with the Irish phone company called Aircom. They're like what AT&T of Ireland. And they had never paid a third party like me to sell some of their services. So I had to negotiate with them and explain to them what I was doing, why I was doing it. I had a customer in tow, which really helps. You know, a lot of times if they see the dollars and you're just in between them and the dollars, you can negotiate really well. So does that answer it?
Yeah.
Thanks. How did you find talented people to help be your employees, help you work through the process? How do you find these talented people? Can you describe that for us?
Hey, this is just me. But everybody I hired for the first 5 years after I started hiring people were people that I had worked with in the past. And I got a sense for who they were and their work ethic, and I knew them. So I recruited. I didn't post jobs. After that, I started to have to post jobs. And one good example is a couple of years ago, I was hiring an admin, and I just ran an ad in KSL and Indeed or something. And she showed up, and I interviewed all these people for an admin, and this girl showed up. And one of the things I look for in a good employee is something I call aptitude. It's not an attitude, it's aptitude. It's an ability to learn how to do things. And if someone has to ask me twice, it irritates me. How does a fax machine work? Or how does, whatever. I don't want to show you twice. I only want to show you once. And this girl showed up. She had a resume, really bright personality. I asked her, when you're at your house and let's say Xfinity ships you a router, who installs it? Is it you or does someone else in your house? You have an aptitude. Can you read instructions and follow them and do something? And so that's a baseline for me for hiring a new employee is how can they express to me in an interview that they have aptitude, that they can be taught something once and learn it and not forget it and eventually be very good at it. No one wants to teach someone. What else? Am I out of time?
You have 5 more minutes.
Okay.
If there's like one more question, that would be.
Yeah.
Marketing, excuse me, marketing trends in your industry, is it more business to business, or have the trends gone ahead, been a little bit different throughout your time there, or what can you tell us about marketing and how it's done?
Yeah, marketing for me in my business, and again, you're going to have multiple, I think, guest speakers that come from different industries. Mine is very word of mouth, reputation kind of precedes you when you meet with the customer. Oh, we've heard of you guys. So having a website or SEO or Google Ads or billboards isn't something that helped me grow my business. We have one customer over 20 years that actually contacted us via our website. And all of the rest were word of mouth referrals. So mine's a little bit different than that. I have a son that owns a digital marketing agency, and he's growing his business. It's called Scroll, and they're up in Layton. And they use Facebook advertising. They use Google Ads. They use most of their leads for his business to business, right? Digital marketing are from LinkedIn. And he posts almost every day on LinkedIn, and he gets a lot of people reaching out to him on LinkedIn, which was surprising to me. There are other businesses, I'm sure, that SEO, Google Ads, Facebook ads, ads on all the social media platforms and other things are really important, and there's a way to do that better. But my business, I don't have any experience with that. Thank you. What else? Anybody else?
On your website, it says that you got an award for partnering with Telaris.
Yeah.
Can you describe the relationship of using your business to partner with others?
Oh yeah, and we do it all the time. So in my industry, we have what are called master distributors. And I think a lot of industries are very similar, where there's always somebody that's kind of the pinnacle of what you do. And then you begin to funnel business through them because they have scale. And all of these providers are willing to pay them more than they'd be willing to pay you directly. So if you funnel it through them, they take a little slice of the pie. But it also puts you in a position where you get ranked among your peers in my industry. And being ranked among your peers helps me, again, in a marketing sense. If all of my customers know that year over year I'm winning awards, and the other guy they met with last week, they haven't seen them win any award. To me, that helps my business. And we do have kind of this, when any business that's distributing something, right? Even masks, right? There's a regional distributor and probably a national distributor, and then there's a global distributor of those masks. And my business is similar for IT.